obviously David did. David was spoiled for choice. He had 3 Saints players on the shortlist.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at his votes, and he's only really gone away from that with overrated players. But then I think he would do that. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a completely obvious choice. You know, a kind of a dominant player in a dominant team, really. But yeah, it's not to kind of dismiss any of the other efforts. But yeah, Saints were clearly the best team of the year, so you had to pick a Saints player, and I guess it was just pick who you kind of think was the most influential at any one time, I suppose.
Yeah, I agree. I think Cunningham's impressed because of how she's played different roles in the team this year, and how when Gaskin got injured halfway through the year, she moved seamlessly into the halfback positions and led the team around that way, and that was after taking on what was a relatively new role for her as a ball-playing loose forward. So really impressed with Jodie Cunningham and all the qualities in that team. And she showed up in the final, even though she got a sin bin in as well in the grand final. She scored an outrageously good try as well. Yeah, Jodie Cunningham for me as well. There was a vote for the retiring Andrea Dobson. I think it actually came from someone who's involved with the community stuff she does around Sheffield Eagles, so it was kind of a little bit of a one like that. The shortlisted Vicky Molyneux of Wigan got a vote as well, but all the top 3 all come from the treble winners, St Helens, and they were all pretty clear of the others in terms of the voting that they received as well. It's no real surprise because they were absolutely outstanding team. I've swallowed any kind of resentment I have for the Saints, and there was some sort of women's people vote for women kind of thing that I saw being pushed through St Helens' social medias. Awards that recognise outstanding women, and St Helens were in there as an option for the outstanding sporting team of the year. So there was no other option for me. Third place, with 10% of the vote, was their captain, Emily Rudge. England's captain, Emily Rudge. In second place, with 24% of the vote, was Amy Hardcastle, who I think everyone's been blown away by this year with her powerful run-in. But the winner, with 61% of the vote, was Jodie Cunningham. So well done, Jodie.
Yeah, moving on to the most underrated player of the year. We've got quite a list of previous winners. 2014 was Ollie Holmes, 2015 was Carl Ablett, 2016 was Reece Hanbury, 2017 Matt Cook, 2018 Matty Ashurst, 2019 Joe Philbin and Niall Evans-Drew, and 2020 Michael Lawrence. In terms of host votes, David went for Morgan Knowles.
Obviously.
Mark went... Sorry?
Obviously.
Well, yeah.
He was in the Dream Team. How's he underrated? Did he think he was He's not voted for him as Player of the Year, so I don't understand what other accolade he could have got.
We'll get to stupid votes for underrated players, but go on.
Mark voted for Joe Shorrocks and Alan voted for George King.
Yes.
Do you want to defend your choices?
I'm happy to defend it, and I'll defend it in the terms of how I understand this award. Other people clearly have different understandings. My definition of underrated is somebody that you expect very little from, or you have kind of no level of kind of no level of expectation of, no level of kind of, you don't regard them very particularly highly as a player, but actually when you watch them and you see their performances, they actually play very well. And for me, George King was that player this year in the sense that, nobody talks about him as being a great prop. I don't think anyone would say that. He probably isn't a great prop, but he kind of outperformed his level of expectation for me. So that's how I see this award. It's players who are very, very unheralded, do a lot of hard work, and are not really recognised in any other way. That's the kind of Michael Lawrence's, the Matt Cooks at the time, Matty Ashurst's, Ollie Holmes back in the day when he wasn't trying to be famous. Those are the kind of players who, for me, are the kind of underrated player, but other people think of it in other ways.
I went Joe.
I think I'm with you there.
Sorry, go on, Sarah. Sorry.
No, I was just saying, I think I'm with you in how I would define it. My issue was the season was that long ago, I couldn't even remember. I couldn't even remember the big name players, never mind the underrated ones.
Yeah, I think that played a little bit of part of it in my choice, and that's why I went for someone from my club, because I thought closer to, I look at it each year on a sort of, not kind of the holistic, this guy's career, what they've done, that sort of stuff. I kind of look at it at the start of the year and at the end of the year, where were they compared to where I thought they would be, and I thought Joe Shorrocks would be a bit part player at Wigan, wouldn't be a major influence. I didn't know whether I'd expect him to kick on or not this year. Yeah, I wasn't sure where he'd be at, but actually ended up playing every single game. He was because of playing every single game in part, but he was the top tackler in Super League, so he did put in a lot of hard work, and defence was an area that I looked at with Shorrocks and thought he needed to improve on. And now I think Wigan are better when he's on the field. And I think he could be the heir apparent to Sean O'Loughlin. So my thoughts of him as being, will he really break through, to being now me thinking I'd quite not mind giving him the 13 shirt and starting him at loose forward week in, week out, means that and no one else seems to be talking about him in the same way. I feel like he's come out of this year as being underrated, given how much progress I think he's made.
Yeah, I mean, he undoubtedly, Joe Shorrocks has had a very, very good year. So yeah, I support that as you say at the beginning of the year. Even you as a kind of fan didn't really expect much of him. So I'm guessing most people didn't expect anything at all.
Yeah, I guess it's that as a general rule of thumb, it's who's the highest number player for your team who's played and performed well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good point.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah, so only 40 players got votes. Over 40 players got votes. So opinions varied widely, and the most popular choices therefore only earned a low share of the vote as per normal with this award. And it was shared this year on just 6% for the winning men. 2 of the 3 winners also take home Ablett Awards for getting most overrated votes as well as most underrated. So the winner with 6% of the vote was shared by Jake Mammer, Kevin Nagama and Liam Farrell. I'd never class any of those 3 as being underrated.
I'm certainly surprised by the voters of voting public of this podcast of thinking Liam Farrell's underrated when I rate him as some sort of god.
Yeah, the England international and well recognised as one of the best second rowers the game's produced in the last 20 years, Liam Farrell. Yeah, that's the one. The Jake Mammo one, I kind of understand from a point of view of he did way more than people expected, second top try scorer and all that kind of stuff.
The fact that he didn't make the dream team when I can't put my finger on why Percival was in the dream team ahead of him.
Yeah, I think that's fair enough. I wouldn't say Nagama's a difficult one because I think his performances at the end of the year kind of were obviously at an incredibly high level. I don't feel he was underrated in any way. The guy's an international player, coming in with lots of NRL experience.
I think he's respected, but he's very rarely heralded. You never sort of hear people talking about him as the best player in his position throughout a season. I think maybe that's where people have come from. People have looked at the people who've got in the dream team ahead of him and thought they've played in the same side and he's been the best centre in that side. Maybe, I don't know, but
it sounds like we're making a case that Percival was a bit overrated this year.
I think it's
even though we didn't say that.
Slightly, yeah, but yeah,
maybe.
Liam Farrell's never been underrated in my parish. Let's put it that way.
No, underrated by Which it was Wayne Bennett wouldn't pick him, wasn't it? Yeah. Underrated by Wayne Bennett, but not anybody else. So now we turn to the yin to the yang. So most overrated player. So this is where you really get the boot out. In 2014, it was Rangi Chase. 2015, it was shared between Carl Ablett, Matty Smith, Kevin Locke. Remember Kevin Locke? Chris Sandow. In 2016, Sam Tompkins. 2017, Kevin Brown. 2018, Luke Gale. 2019, Blake Austin. And last year, we were nice and didn't award it. So this year, I decided to vote for Gareth Widdop as being almost the epitome of an overrated player. On David's behalf, he stuck the boot into Wigan as normal and said Zach Hardacre, but somebody else also agreed with him, didn't they, Mark?
Yeah, I went with Zach Hardacre purely on the basis that Zach Hardacre overrates Zach Hardacre, and there's a few other people in the media who seem to go along with this with him. I'm not saying Zach Hardacre isn't a very, very good rugby league player still. I'm not saying he isn't, on his day, still an outstanding defensive fullback. But for Zach Hardacre to claim to be the best fullback in the competition at any stage this year, when he was only playing there because of injury to one of his teammates, I think was overrating himself. For other people on other podcasts or other media outlets to go along with him on that story and claim that he was the best, and for anyone to be talking about he should be playing for England at fullback and there was a competition for that spot, to me it was too high profile a conversation for me to not pull it out as my most overrated. There's very good and there's should be starting for England best in the competition, and Zach Hardacre's he's in the very good band, not in the Sam Tompkins zone. So purely because he overrated himself.
I think that's totally fair enough. So as you might expect, over 20 players got votes, and actually lots of listeners actually are quite nice and didn't vote for this category.
Only about half the voters voted. So for this in this category, yeah.
I'm slightly disappointed. We should list all 5 of the Ablett Award winners here. So joining Mamo and Farrell are Robert Louis, Zach Hardacre and Gareth Widdop. So in terms of the overall votes, though, in third place with 9% of the vote, it was Johnny Lomax and Luke Gale.
I must say, Johnny Lomax, heavily, the Australian vote thinks Johnny Lomax is overrated. I guess because they see him more internationally and realise he's never performed at that level yet.
Yes, maybe so.
I could go with them, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I think I stuck the boot into him in the last podcast I was on, so yeah, I can't really disagree. In second...
shall we just pause before we do the other people, the second and the winner? Luke Gale was the other one. Sarah, I know you feel Luke Gale maybe is an overrated player.
Oh, yeah.
How do you feel about him becoming your new halfback for 2022?
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah. Well, the club are releasing a new media story every day on him to try and make fans like him. Every day there's a new player telling us how amazing he is. So I think that probably tells you what the feeling locally is about him. I have to say I'm not impressed. And I'm really shocked that Snead's left. I mean, totally get it from his point of view. We clearly weren't going to give him as long a contract as he wanted, and you've got to look after your family at the end of the day. But I think, as Rob said, if Gale's the answer, what's the question? And I'm afraid I wait to be convinced. I mean, to be fair, I did see a Facebook memory recently that was very critical of the signing of a certain Mr. Kelly. So, he can convince me.
Well, we did an SLP poll around the sort of merry-go-round that turned up, really, because in the end, 4 clubs have ended up kind of shifting a bloke onto each other, haven't they? So